Good afternoon. My name is Nick. I am from sunny Edinburgh, and it's a great pleasure to be here in front of you today talking about cake. And you'll see there's a little bit of a cake theme throughout the presentation. So kicking us off with what looks like a tasty one. And actually, some of the motivation behind this talk has really been covered already today. In terms of in Tobias's keynote that kicked us off, he was talking about all the things that are going on, like POP and some of the review things across Europe. A fabulous question around how that work connected with this and was it connected enough? And actually, when Mark welcomed us first thing, he was talking about the HPC world, the AI world, and then the connections between these areas. And really what motivates us here is there's just so much going on. It's such a big space, such a big ecosystem, and inevitably people can't be aware of everything and all the different bits. And that then leads to a whole bunch of disadvantages. So duplication of effort, missed opportunities, etc., etc. And if we focus in very specifically to the UK, you may or may not have been aware of these calls that have been coming, and I'm sure there's more to come, for the Digital Research Infrastructure Programme. And these have funded a whole bunch of projects across, again, lots of different areas, cross-cutting HPC and AI. I'll show you some examples a bit later. But again, even in this sort of microcosm, if you like, it's just things aren't connected. And people aren't necessarily aware of other things going on. And, some of these don't even have websites. But then when you step back from this and you think about actually what digital research infrastructure means in the UK, it's such a wide thing. And it's so much wider than this individual project, for instance, or this individual program. I mean, I suspect most of us in this room would think we're connected in some way with this. But you might, for instance, be, I don't know, a librarian working on doing some data analytics. You might not necessarily think that you have some involvement in this community, but you would so much benefit from the knowledge and experience, maybe in a tool or a specific set of tools held by other people, and vice versa. Maybe your skills around data collection and data analytics would benefit these other people as well. And so the idea of CAKE is to form this hub to act as a central knowledge exchange throughout UK DRI, and we're funded by the Digital Research Infrastructure Programme, but crucially and most importantly, we're outwards looking. So we're not limited just to what the programme has funded, but instead everything going on driven by the UK in this area. And really especially interested as well to connect with and bring in new communities who, as I say, don't necessarily think they're part of this, but actually, in reality, we would all benefit from having closer connections. It's led by us four on the left, and again, as I'll talk about later on, we're very, very keen to grow this and bring a lot of people in and really make this self-sustaining. And it's just us doing the boring bits and pieces that nobody then wants to do, and everyone does the fun bits related to this. And really what I'm going to talk about is a whole bunch of different activities focused around these 5 different areas, but we are very early on. So crucially, we've got a lot of flexibility. So based on what I talk about today, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, they've missed a trick, tell us, give us your ideas, because we can bring these in and we can actually use them. As I say, the whole point of this is to serve the community, serve the communities to actually do this knowledge exchange and bring people together. So the first set of things that we're looking at doing is we've set up this website, cake.ac.uk. Sounds a really simple thing, but the idea of this is as a central landing point for digital research infrastructure in the UK. So if you want something, if you're thinking, oh, where do I look for that? Actually, this is the one-stop shop. From there, I can then connect with everything else that's going on. And, social media and all the other bits and pieces. But again, something that is very simple, but we think probably quite effective, is this idea of an events calendar. So this is a screenshot I took from the website a couple of days ago. The first event on there is this thing here today, the HPC AI Advisory Council. But again, when you look at it, there's so much stuff that's going on week in, week out throughout the community. It's very, very easy to miss things. So again, the idea of this one-stop shop, let me have a quick look on here. Let me see what's going on. Let's actually see what's interesting to me to make sure I haven't missed opportunities. And I've got this view of this. Now, of course, this is only as good as the data that's on here. So part of this is a plea. If you are aware of activities, if you're organising activities, please reach out. You can either email us, contact us. Our details are on here and I'll mention them at the end. But also behind the scenes, it's all GitHub. So you can literally raise a PR if you want, and we'll merge that in and bring that in as well. So again, this idea of driven by the community to help advertise these things and to help make them clear to everybody. I appreciate we've got a busy couple of days here, but I thought I'd just briefly highlight a few things in the near future. Probably a lot of people in this room will be aware of these. Next week, I suspect a lot of the same people, to some extent, will decamp over to the UK DRI Congress. Cake, we're there and we're running a session, exploring some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that we face in DRI and connecting people. Next month, the Software Sustainability Institute, we heard about that a little bit in the previous talk. They're running research software camp. Again, Cake are involved in some of the different bits and pieces there, but I thought highlighting this, if you're not aware of that, there's some nice things going on there and potentially some nice opportunities to pick up some skills and make connections with people. Supercomputing next month, I guess, again, a lot of that's on our radar. As I'll talk about a bit later on, a really important thing of what we want to do is help position the UK within the global context and help make people aware of all the really cool things going on in the UK across these projects. There's a number of booths at supercomputing. And so if you're there or if you can't be there but want to have material showcased, let us know and we can do this for you. We can put these on those booths. And if you're there, I'm sure we can give you opportunities to, to connect with people. But also, if you are doing things at supercomputing and want that amplified, again, let us know. We'll put this on the website. We're going to be putting out comms in the run-up to it. And then lastly, Computing Insight UK. I always think of this as the Christmas event in Manchester in December. Again, there's going to be a booth and there's going to be a DRI session there as well. So things going on, but then obviously then into next year, things like HPC Days Durham that Tobias was mentioning, and a whole bunch of other things. And the purpose for us and what we want to do is do quite a lot of the hard work in terms of the organisation, setting things up, and then people can literally just tap into that and exploit that and use this as a platform to then be able to amplify their message, their outcomes, and connect with people. What we've also got on the website is something we're calling Cake Box. Again, it's not a very imaginative name, but the idea of this is an internal-ish knowledge base. So a bit less showy than the website itself, but just a way of collating and sharing knowledge across the community that people might need time and time again. So at the moment, what we've got up here are things like code of conducts and some of the best practice around reviewers and things like that. But really look at building this out in multiple dimensions. So maybe some of the technical dimensions, some of the, I think for them as meta dimensions, things like best practice around different bits and pieces. Again, it just avoids it being spread all over the place. And then when a project finishes, bit rotting and it gets lost. By putting it on here, the purpose in our mind is it's easier to find and it's potentially got a longer term future sort of as things continue into the sunsetting stage. And lots more coming. So reaching out to the community and really this comes back to what I was talking about a few slides ago. If you've got ideas, let us know. We want to put things up like a simple getting started guide. So if you're wanting to get into these communities, but you're not involved, actually, what's the terminology mean? Who do I need to speak to? Why is this important? Things that we often take for granted, but actually, it's quite a steep learning curve when you're getting into this. And yeah, also this idea of a glossary of terms to connect people on this. Now, we are funding a number of things through the network, so a number of funding opportunities, and these are out on the website. The first thing that we're looking to fund over the next 2.5 years are placements and visits. So both ways, people in the UK going either in the UK or across the wider world to visit other people, other groups, and do cool stuff. But vice versa, people elsewhere to come to the UK and do cool stuff here. Things like a workshop, for instance, or speak at different events. The purpose behind this is often when you've got these dedicated activities, it can supercharge things. There might be a group in some part of Europe or some part of the US that might be really beneficial for you to go and spend a week, 2 weeks with and focus on a specific technical problem that not only solves that, but then might unlock lots and lots of future opportunities. So as I say, we've got this call out, rolling deadline, first of every month. We'll review these and aim to get you an answer within about 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. And then you can go and you can use that money to visit collaborators, build new collaborations, etc., etc. And we're quite flexible on this. So, if you've got ideas, you're not necessarily sure if it fits into what I'm saying here, either come and have a chat with me, have a look on the website. The idea is it's quite a low overhead form, but then actually, as I say, looking to unlock this. Stuff on the right at the bottom is important as well. What we're looking as part of this is to ramp up some matchmaking. So people coming to us saying, look, I've got this idea. I'm really interested in connecting to community X, but I'm not sure how to do that. Who I would go and visit, who I would speak to at the start. Really, the idea of this coordinated network in the middle is we might not know the answer, but we know who to ask. And we then know who to connect you with, and we're able to then help you on that step to then enable you to drive this. And also some mentoring and guidance in terms of getting the best out of these things. We've also got a call out for knowledge exchange fellows, knowledge exchange fellowships with a bit of money associated with each of these. This is, as I say, open now on the website, closes the end of November. And really there's two purposes of this. Firstly, what we'd like to do is recruit a number of people who are enthusiastic and think this is a cool idea to get involved and help shape the network and help shape what we're doing. Now, really important to say on this, what we're not looking for people to do is to do our job. We're still expected ourselves to deliver and do all the uninteresting stuff behind the scenes. But what we want is people to come and say, okay, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? We think it'd be cool if we did this, and actually engage at that level. And as I say, help drive this and help take this to a really cool place. Also, the idea of these fellowships is to act as conduits or mouthpieces to connect with different sub-communities. So this might be a sub-community that's already fairly well connected. Maybe, we're here, so I think of DRI, but equally it could be something that's completely not connected at all. Librarians, I gave the example of earlier, to then help bring this wider community and network together. So these are the fellowships, the ambassadors, if you like, for knowledge exchange. We're going to have a number of these different calls out there in the coming 2.5 years. The first one is live on the website. And then the last opportunity that we've got that we're going to start running from next year are retreats. And part of this was motivated by quite a few years ago now. I went to a retreat, an academic retreat in Japan, and it brought together lots of people who were interested in a specific topic. For me, that was compilers and novel architectures. And it completely changed the sort of trajectory of my career in terms of the people I met, the ideas we had, and then the projects that came out of that. And yes, we've got some of these things in the UK, but maybe not organised with the same idea and drive as that, or the German seminar as well. So the purpose of this is to have a themed retreat sort of all around a specific topic, but knowledge exchange, the idea being between individual participants in that topic, bring them together for 2 or 3 days in this specific location, and then actually, get that driven and let this unfold to make new connections, new networks, share the knowledge, but also drive forward collaborations on these specific topics. And the really important thing to say is these topics will be suggested by the community. So it's not us saying topic A, topic B, topic C. It's people here in this room and the wider community saying, well, we think this topic here is really important. We should be looking at this as a community. We should bring more people in, not just from the UK, but from the US, Europe, Asia. And actually, we're going to get a lot of benefit from that. So that's really important to say here, that it's driven very much by the community, the choice of these topics. And the last area that we're focusing on is conferences and workshops. Now, you might disagree with me in this room, and it's fine to do this. I go around ISC, I go around SC, and maybe some other conferences, and I think we are quite poor in the UK at presenting the really amazing stuff we do in a joined-up fashion. Yes, there's little pockets of people that are doing it, but there's so much that's not presented out there. There's so much that's lost from the global community. And, you see some groups in Europe, in the US, in Asia, and they're sort of reinventing the wheel of what that group over here in the UK are an expert in doing. And that's because there's not always the opportunity or the drive from these people to present at the world stage. I think it's just so important that we do and we ramp this up, not only from that perspective, but also for the opportunities for funding and all that as well. And so there's 2 sides to this we're taking. The first side is to encourage people, encourage groups to get involved in, I want to say, the organisation of these conferences. And what I really mean by that is, if we take supercomputing as an example, organising things like workshops, panels, birds of a feather sessions. It's actually vanishingly small, the number of people from the UK that organise a whole bunch of these things in the main conference. And there's no reason why we can't ramp this up. And we're probably missing a bit of a trick in some of these different groups. The other side of this, though, is providing this exposure to being there at the conferences. It's quite expensive to have a booth. It's not just the cost itself of the booth, but then all the people to staff it and all the material. Well, actually, if we pool our resources, we can do this far more effectively. So a great illustration of this at supercomputing this year, there's going to be a UK universities booth. So this is a number of universities getting together and saying, actually, let's pool our resources. Let's have this representation. They're very keen to expand that and pull in new people. There's also booths like STFC as well. And even supercomputing next month, that's a great opportunity for increased exposure. But then going into next year, the opportunity for more people to get involved and for this really to grow and flourish. And as I say, something as simple as, even if you're not there, just having materials from your project on that booth, somebody is aware of what you're doing and can connect you offline with people in the conference, can make a massive, massive difference. Now, I couldn't stand up here and talk about this without highlighting very briefly some of the cool DRI projects that are going on. And I just wanted to do this to show you really the breadth of stuff that's being funded by this program. And actually, some of these will be talked about in the conference today and tomorrow. Now, we heard first thing from Tobias about the sharing project. The twin of this, well, I think of it as the twin of this because it was funded in the same call, is this thing called Asset Hub. And what Asset Hub is doing is it's all about focusing on research infrastructure engineers. So there's a lot of talk about RSEs, the software engineers, but then there's lots of other job roles such as the system administrators, the DevOps, people who are actually down there plugging the systems in, really low level, getting these things running. And the idea of that hub is to make sure that they are equally represented. They've got good careers, they've got good training opportunities, which will be different from other areas of the community probably. and there's the mentorship in place, etc., etc. This thing in the middle, Castada, what this is doing is it's saying, look, data is just so important for the communities. And what we need are a series of people who are experts in curating, collecting, and maintaining data sets. And they call them data stewards. And it's really this observation that a lot of these people exist, but maybe they're not valued as much as they should be. There aren't the opportunities there maybe for the career progression. But actually, they're just crucial in terms of having that information there, especially as we're focusing more and more on trustworthy AI and the importance of that good training data. So it's making sure that that sort of sub-community, if you like, is served. And this project on the right, two reasons I've put this in. The first reason is because what they're focused on is the long-term career gains for research technical professionals. So yes, we appreciate now in the community that this is an important group, but ensuring that that group can then progress all the way through to the highest levels of job seniority and making sure that there isn't a glass ceiling in place. But also what they've done and what a few of these are doing is they're focused regionally. So here they're focused on London, for instance, saying, look, we're going to have the biggest impact initially just focusing on a specific region and the challenges that that region raises. But then we'll roll this out more widely, and the lessons we've learned can be applied across the community. So these three things I've highlighted here are, I think of them as a bit meta in terms of thinking about careers, thinking about progression, making sure that the people are supported. There's also a lot of technical projects as well. And this mix of things is what really excites me. So for instance, again, just to highlight a few, and we're going to hear some of these over the next coming days and different talks. Curation skills for sensitive data. In the UK, we've got a number of these trusted research environments that store and enable analysis on sensitive data. It might be medical data, it might be commercially sensitive data, etc., etc. So really understanding the unique challenges associated with privacy and some of the related aspects to do with that and the best practices. In the middle, and we're certainly hearing from this tomorrow, so I'll be quick. This one fascinates me. It's this idea of a living benchmark suite that is focused around the challenges and the issues we face in the UK for the workloads that people run. And it's making sure that the future procurements in the UK are based upon actual data rather than a little bit more woolly. So they are collecting and curating the set of benchmarks that people in the UK think are important and match our workloads, and then this catalogue of all these different data sets and scenarios so the vendors know exactly where the goalposts are. And then lastly, this idea of APIs that support AI and environmental research. So a common set of APIs across a whole bunch of the different NERC activities that these different workloads can connect in with and then leverage this common ecosystem for the data that's being generated and needs to be processed. Now, as I say, very, very briefly covering 6 of these different projects, but the purpose of this was to show you some of the diversity, really going back to what Mark was saying in terms of HPC, AI, and a foot in both camps that's happening in the community. Something that we're doing in Cake is collecting all of these together in this landscape view. It's a bit work in progress at the moment. Ultimately, we want a diagram, a vision of how all these things fit together. Not quite got the creativeness yet for that. It's currently a bit of a list, but it's just showing all the different bits and pieces that are going on. And if you look at that and you think something's missing or your activity is missing, please tell us. We'd love to add it. We'd love to put it in there. As I say, to show people all these different activities and to act as a bit of a hub to share with the community what people are doing and what people are achieving. Now, just to finish on a bit of a plug, as I say, we've got some funding opportunities up on the website, the call for placements and visits that I talked about, the call for fellows that I talked about, and lastly, we've also got a call for reviewers, people to get involved and help us in terms of reviewing applications, well, lots and lots of different diverse voices to ensure we make great decisions for funding the right people on these different aspects. And my last slide, which seems to have, there it is. My last slide is just a plea to come and get involved. This will really, the success of this really relies on the engagement from the community, something I'm very passionate and excited about. We'd love for you to get involved. Have a look on the website. There's sort of 3 ways: joining the Slack, joining the announce list, contributing to our internal knowledge base. And as I say, please also consider being a fellow there. And feel free to reach out if anything I've said you disagree with, or you think we're missing a trick in terms of what might be an effective approach to this. So thank you very much for listening. If there's any quick questions before lunch, very happy to take them now. If not, please grab me. I'd love you to chat with you about this in more detail.
Thank you, Nick. I do see one question over here, but before that, your mention in terms of what seems to be a decrease in, say, half-day workshops or tutorials of UK innovation and research at such things like ISC or supercomputing had me kind of think, oh, you know what? I don't recall seeing anything like that. And Negus Slysax over here from ISC, she can shoot me and tell me I'm absolutely wrong. But the only thing I see in a UK stance is ARM, like anything related to ARM, right? But I don't see what you're talking about in terms of research and just a general half-day workshop, or just to be able to highlight what the UK is doing to the rest of the world. And I wonder, not, coming from an American and, being not 100% correct on some of the policies, but I feel like from what I know, that there is obviously an environmental concern of how many people can essentially travel from the UK to any given location. And could that be a reason for that decrease?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, this comes from a bit of a personal perspective. I'm meaning something slightly different, but it's a very interesting point you make. So the reason I sort of talk about that and came from that angle is, you might not be aware of this technology, but I began a few years ago the RISC-V series of workshops at ISC, supercomputing. It's an open instruction set architecture. And that was just a massive springboard. Somebody like me who's a bit of a nobody, suddenly getting in front of lots of really important people, inviting your speakers, inviting your panelists. And it was such a shot in the arm in terms of helping me get involved in this community. And I think people miss a bit of an opportunity to do that. They don't know that there's these opportunities out there in terms of, I'm involved in this, but then you don't necessarily make the connection of, well, actually, I could get involved in organising a workshop or organising a BOF. There might be one already, but I could get involved in the organising committee. So it's maybe also just showing people the art of the possible with some of this, but then also connecting them with somebody who's experienced in these sort of proposals or is the right person to ask in that community as well. The other side is, would we want to have a UK-wide workshop or BOF at these things? In Excalibur, we did have an Excalibur BOF at supercomputing, but the challenge with these things, of course, is, I think in reality, to make these things successful, you want them to be outward looking. So there's probably a better idea to have a session around UK, US, Asia, how we connect and coordinate as a wider community.
Thank you.
I'll make it quick because I don't want to stand before anybody's lunch and then I really get killed. I really like cake, I have to say. What I really found interesting are the placements you were talking about. Very good idea. But I was wondering, one of the problems we are having in the UK and in general is a skill shortage. So we need more apprenticeship going into IT and learning it. If you think about it, taking the UK apprentice in IT and say, okay, guys, for 1 week, you're working at Isambard, for example. For 1 week, you're working in Cambridge. For 1 week, you're working in Edinburgh. So you see a different hardware field. And the icing of the cake is you might be able to work, for example, for a week in Jülich or in Lumi, because it's a completely different architecture. Have you considered that?
No, and I think it's a fantastic idea. It might be an idea we steal. Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's a great idea. We do include PhD students in this, but I think we hadn't envisaged driving it from that angle. And so yeah, that's a really good point and something really to go away and have a detailed think about. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nick.
Well, thank you.